from Phoenix, Arizona, you're watching Extraordinary Lovers TV. Every week, we cover topics that transform the world and ourselves through pleasure. And now, your hosts, best-selling author and international Tantra teacher, Laurie Handlers, and creator of the Extraordinary Lovers Experience and sex and happiness coach, Michael Gibson.
After everything we did to try to get this all set up, and Chrissy was being our monitor and listening to us all get started, this is where it's a learning process, and now we're 4 months in and I'm still learning. So
I thought luck had nothing to do with it, but I think in this case luck has everything to do with it.
Sometimes
you have to get a new computer, and then and then if everything goes wrong, well, then we're fucked.
Hashtag then we're fucked. That's so funny. Well, hi honey, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
You've had some amazing experiences the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I think. And today was another one. You want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, this morning I was on Wonder Women Festival. I'm a return presenter. I presented on sex and aging over 60. And it was awesome. I got feedback already from Karin.
Did you?
I don't think Karin's going to be on with us today, but Karin was on it during her lunch hour.
Awesome.
And so it was shocking to her how she just wrote me a quick thing on an email that said, "Wow, that was awesome." So it was really good. I had about 40 women. And I know the festival will reach thousands of women.
Yeah.
And I talked about desirability, like the biggest thing that people worry about. Well, our marketing person, Daniel, who isn't on with us right now, I don't see him anywhere. Daniel says that women worry about this. I say everyone worries about this. People worry about whether they're going to be desirable as they age.
Yeah.
Like how are they going to look, and how are things going to be for them if they don't look as good as 20?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I talked about.
It's a thing.
Yeah,
I'm going to say it's a thing. Quite frankly, when anytime we're involved in any of our programs, and there are a large, diverse group of ages.
Yeah,
that's what I'll call it. The older men, me included, we get passed over for the younger men, and the older women get passed over for the younger women. And that's across the board. That's older men interested in younger women and younger men interested in younger women. So it's like there's this age thing that's just so weird. But I got to tell you, people our age are really juicy, really sexy, hot. We got some skills.
Well, you were in your earphones, so you were in the same room as me this morning, but you didn't hear what I said. And I heard a little bit. I was telling this story about, I feel cockeyed here. Hold on a minute.
Fix it.
I was telling this story about how when I became an ISTA lead and I told the male leads.
Oh, tell that story. That's really good.
Yeah, this is one of the stories that changed my life. But it not only changed my life, it changed other people's lives. So in 2014, I was 66 years of age. And I was at a core gathering for ISTA. It was my first one. It was the first one they ever had. And there were 5 male leads and 1 female lead at the time. And they called me in to interview me into a room. And they asked me a lot of questions, and I answered the questions. And, I didn't really I wasn't trying to perform. So, they asked me some interesting questions like, why do I want to be a lead? And I started laughing, and I said, I can't do anything other than lead. I don't know, that doesn't occur for me as a choice. It just occurs to me that I'm a leader, so I lead. And then they said, after they asked me a bunch of things, they said, okay, do you have anything to say to us? Or do you have anything to ask us? And I said, yeah, I do. I couldn't believe I did this. Like, my heart was palpitating and my stomach was in a knot. And I said, I think I'm the oldest person in this room, and probably the oldest person on faculty at ISTA. And I noticed that you pass over me. Like, you treat me like I'm a pole, like a pole in a building, holding up a building. Like, because I'm not 30 or something, 25 or 30, you're not chasing my skirt. And you're going to miss something, because I'm juicier now than I was when I was 30. Because I'm not hung up. Like, I'm not worried about what you think about me, and I'm not worried about, like, having to appeal to you. So I have more power, and that more power gives me more juice. So if you miss that in me, then you missed something. And one of them said, I'm going to use the real words here. I didn't use it in the festival, but one of them looked at me and said, do you want me to fuck you? And I said, actually not. I have a boundary about that. But I want your flirt, and I want your juiciness, and I want you to not pass me over. I want you to notice me and be playful, your energy with my energy. That's what I want. And that day changed my whole life and changed their whole lives. Like, after that, it changed all the senior men in ISTA. It changed their whole way of looking at older women.
Yeah.
And me in particular. And it changed me because I had never asked for something so vulnerably and so vulnerable before. I had never been that honest with my fear of, like, I'm being passed over because I'm older. Like, I just said it.
Yeah.
And so it changed me because I actually got what I wanted. And then I knew I could get anything I want. And it changed them because they don't overlook people like they did before. And I noticed that at a different, a year and a half later, I noticed them protecting me. I noticed them being more playful with me. I noticed them caring about me in such a way that I could see it, dancing with me more provocatively. Everything. I changed everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So that's what I did to make a request for what I wanted.
Well, hello there, Tanya. Hello, Careza. They're in the chat with us. We love you so much. Thank you for being with us again. And look, Scotty K.
Wait, Tanya, look at my eyes. Scotty, we'll be right back. Tanya, look. I don't have my glasses on. I can see. I can't really read what you wrote, but I can actually almost read it. My eyes are getting better every single day.
Yes.
Okay, Scotty K.
What up?
Scott Kaltenbaugh is with us, and he's our guest today. So he's hanging out with us.
And Jeff D. Priest, thanks for the follow. So excited to have you with us. Yes, absolutely.
So, I've been through a lot this week and this morning. I've been through surgery. And then this morning, I did that festival, and I told that story. Yeah,
and I got to hear a little bit of it. There were a few things that I got to listen to. It was fun. I was in my little spot doing the production kind of stuff, and Laurie was working in this tantra room. We've changed a little bit. We used to have a table, and we used to have high chairs, and we've changed that a little bit. Hopefully
we're more comfortable now.
Hopefully you like it, because we were up on these tall chairs, and that was really kind of.
It was hard for me to figure out where to put my feet. I'm so short. Now I have my feet on a pillow.
Now we look almost the same height.
Yeah.
Because you got your comfy chair, the one that you love.
I have my good chair.
This is her office chair, the one that she loves, and I thought, well, let's do it that way. So anyway, today we're actually having a conversation about the masculine, and you have quite a bit to say about the masculine, as do I, and but what I'd like to do is start to shift from some of the things that we got to experience last week. And I don't want to step over, the core gathering that we had with them, the ISTA core gathering that we had over the weekend, which was phenomenal. My first one ever. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was really
my pleasure.
It was an honor and a privilege to be with the North American leaders of the International School of Temple Arts. Yeah, so it was really powerful.
Yeah, and you got to see some of the inside workings, and you got to see why the process is so slow. Sometimes people expect overnight changes. They expect us to jump through some hoops, and we don't have any hoops. We like, I'm just gonna say, I'm gonna tell you how ISTA conducts business, so you have an idea. And you will never see a corporate meeting like this.
Nope.
We go away for 4 days or we go away for a week, and the first thing we have to do is get into the love with people.
So unique.
So, for example, if I have something out with you, like something that I didn't tell you that I have against you, or some disagreement that we had, or whatever, just like Michael and I teach in Extraordinary Lovers, like
I was so blown away by that.
you have to cough it up. You have to go over to people and say, I'm out with you and I need to get in with you. We have to get into the love before we're going to have any business.
Right.
That's number one. And that usually goes on for a day or two. But we had 4 days only, so it went on for a day. Then after you get into the love, you have to get into eros. So what that means is you have to get into the energy, eros energy, like you have to get into desires. You have to be honest about them. You have to connect to people physically. You don't have to have sex with them,
Right.
although you can if that's part of your agreements. But you have to touch them. You have to like feel their flesh. You have to roll with them and
experience them and have them experience you.
Right. So you have to be. So for the first two activities on Bit for Business, always in ISTA at a business meeting, at a board meeting, you have to get into the love, and then you have to get into the eros with people, and then and only then, after that, when people are sufficiently connected, then we do business. And like, for business people like me, I want to bite things. I'm like, oh, come on, I want to get to business. But really, that's very masculine. That is part of the masculine. I could lead in with that. Part of the masculine is my wanting to get down to business, penetrate the space with business. And ISTA's mission is not to be in the masculine all the time. It's to be in the flow of the feminine. And so we do that for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, as long as it takes, usually, until people can feel each other again, till people feel connected. It blew your mind.
It was a beautiful experience. I had never experienced anything like that, although I started seeing the pieces and how they interconnect and how ISTA does things. I'm just going to say it, is really how Extraordinary Lovers does things.
It's radical.
It's I was blown away by that. I mean, if you've been through one of our Extraordinary Lovers experiences or even through our journey, which we have a journey coming up, we'll talk about that later. But if you've been through an Extraordinary Lovers experience, what you need to know is that we deal with coming back into the love, loving yourself, loving your partner, coming back into the love, returning to love. And then we work into the eros, which is about relating to your partner, and that includes sexually, sensually, and all the other things. And then we get down to business, which is, we call it sex magic, and we create from that juice.
So it's the same, only you didn't know.
I didn't know. I was like, what? Did they steal this from us?
No,
Nope.
we probably stole it from them.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. We were kind of going, but here's the thing. It's kind of like great minds think alike.
Yeah.
Well, I really feel like ISTA and our programs and your programs, especially Sex and Happiness, really do follow or flow together, whether or not we're using the same terminology. It's just so beautiful. I was blown away by it. I was mind blown.
And you were very much included.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't always want to include yourself, but you were very much included, and you didn't have any particular role there except as ally.
Yeah.
But then you took on some roles.
Well, I didn't have business to do there, right? There wasn't like
they thought your business was to support me.
Oh, and that's what I was there to do.
That's why they said yes to you coming.
Yeah.
They thought it was to advantage that a lead facilitator's partner would come and have an inside view about what we do.
Yeah,
which I think is also How many boardrooms call in the person's spouse?
That's crazy.
Not.
Doesn't
Maybe they
happen.
go away on a golfing trip with the rest of the company, but
Yeah.
this
Well,
was critical and intimate stuff.
right. And it was good. It was really good for
Yeah.
me. It was. I'm glad that I got to see. It's kind of like you said, going into your boardroom with all of the faculty, all of the CEOs, the COO, the CIO, the CFO, all those people, and actually seeing where you fit in. And here's the neat thing:
Oh, and Jen Kochen calls that the C-suite.
the C-suite.
CIO, CFO, CEO, it's the
The
C-suite.
C-suite.
I hadn't heard that before.
What's amazing is getting to go there and see that, and then see all of her peers at that high level really honor her, really see Laurie as the extraordinary woman that she is, the powerful woman that she is. And she was like, no kidding, she dropped it in. When it was time to go and straighten things out, boom, she was right there for it. And that's what I love about you.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
All right. So the masculine.
Yes, the masculine.
Let's talk about that a minute. Now, I don't want to steal any thunder from
No,
our
I know,
upcoming
because
guest.
Scott's going to talk about it. I don't want to, like, what if we say stuff and then Scott goes, oh, damn, I was going to say that. Oh, damn, I was going to say that.
Well, no, because we can always call back and go, we were talking about this, and what do you
Okay.
think?
So the masculine is really important in its place.
Mhm.
So the masculine is not more important than the feminine. I'm not talking about men and women here. I'm talking about the energy masculine, the essence masculinity. We all have both. I don't care. You could be LBGTQ and you have masculine and feminine in you. And you don't need to be labeled one or the other. It's just a kind of energy.
Right.
It's like dark and light. I would say that the masculine is light energy and the feminine is dark energy. If I were to label the two, the feminine is darker energy. It's more the flow, it's more the unseen. It's like form and formless. The masculine is formless if we look at like heaven and the sky.
Right.
The feminine is form, the earth, everything you can touch, everything that's tangible and manifest. But it takes the masculine to think it up. It takes the masculine to it's like I look at it like this. The masculine is like a book of matches, and then the feminine has to like strike the match and make the fire. There's so many different ways to look at it. We at ISTA, and we too, have been under tremendous criticism from people about these polarities, because people who are gender bending and experimenting with new forms of things don't want to be labeled any of these things. And so far, I haven't come up with anything else. But that doesn't mean I'm defending it. I'm very, very open. And Scott, I don't know, I know you have some experience with this, so when you come on, maybe you can speak to this a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, the masculine to me is this: getting business done, penetrating the space, clearing out all the blah, 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 and going like,
Yeah.
my point is, and it's also, I'm not going to take away your thunder with the way you do this thing. So you do it.
No, well, again, I would add, so the thing that we want to make sure that, what I want to communicate is that what we're talking about here are attributes of something we call
The
masculine or feminine. It's not gender specific. So what Laurie is saying,
Or
it's not
biology
man or
specific.
female. It's
Right.
not male. It's not man or woman. It's not male or female. It is an attribute, or it is a space holder for what we call attributes. So the masculine, some of the attributes, as Laurie shared, straight through, penetrative, holding a container. They're the masculine is really well seen in the knight who holds or who's guarding the castle. He's holding space. He's aware. He's making sure everything is okay.
I think if you said it's,
And
It would
I'm
be-
sorry for using, well, I say he, but
that's
the
what I'm
night,
saying.
the
If you
night,
said it's,
right, the night would normally be right that. So it's doing these things. It's this mentality. It's logical in thinking. It's with creativity. It looks at logic as a way to create, right? In the feminine attributes, there is the creation through beauty, the creation through prose. This very different way of looking at things, and also with chaos, with the ability to just move and without having to have this structure. So a bit of an unstructured. But it's also the other attributes are to be the ability to receive, the ability to surrender. And so these are some of the attributes that I would call feminine. And when you look at how the feminine and the masculine work together, I say that the masculine is informed by the feminine. When you see the feminine moving in a chaotic way, the masculine is able to move and hold a containing rather than a container, but can move with the feminine as the feminine moves in its creativity, in its chaos, in its beauty, and all the things. And the masculine is able to appreciate all of that. Whereas the feminine is doing the moving and creating and joining and pushing the edges and awakening things, and moving and surrender and allowing. And so it's just a beautiful dance of these two polarities. Anything else you want to add to that?
it made me smile to see you do that.
I love you, baby.
I came from being very masculine. I was like a little drill sergeant when I was in corporate America. And it took me a while it took me a lot of Tantra to reclaim my feminine, because I had feminine attributes as weak. Like, I had feminine as the distortion. Like, I had it that the feminine aspect of women was a manipulative aspect to, like, to play helpless and to manipulate men to do things. And I had that, and I had it wired like that.
Yeah.
And so I renounced it. I was going to do anything men could do, and I was going to do it better. And then I was going to also do anything women could do and do it better. I was just going to be better than anyone.
Right.
And I was.
You were.
In my
You
companies.
could smoke a cigar with the best of them.
In the boardroom, anytime, anywhere. I could outdrink. I mean, I can remember going on corporate, visits to different divisions when I was in corporate America, not at Landmark, but when I was in the software company.
Yeah.
And I can remember, like, drinking Courvoisier, drinking my vice president counterpart under the table, and just like
Little you?
little me, and him going like, really? How are you doing this? Where's it going? And I could just do it.
She has a hollow leg.
I was very in my malpolarity a lot. And one day I woke up and I said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. I remember getting my hair cut really short, kind of like this. And I remember wearing bright blue, eyeshadow and red lipstick like I do now. And my executive vice president, who was really my mentor in the corporate world, Harvard B School graduate, and he loved me. He thought I was brilliant, and so he always took me under his wing. And remember him barging into my office and going, "This will not cut it. You can't be wearing that makeup and this kind of a suit," and da-da-da. And I said, you know what? I got a closet full of gray and navy blue suits, and I still don't have a penis. So I'm not you. I'm never going to be you. And I'm going to wear eye makeup the way I want to. And I'm going to look the way I want to. And you can't tell me otherwise, because there's a club that you're in that I'm never going to get in. So, like, leave me alone. Oh, and he was so mad.
It was so good.
I think we had that conversation either in Dallas or in Atlanta. We were somewhere. There was a big sales meeting and somebody was winning a Corvette for getting like the biggest sales or whatever. And I remember him sitting me down right before that meeting, that big, you know, PR meeting, and saying, I don't like the way you look. And I said, well, too bad. I'm changing everything. But I didn't really get the feminine then. I didn't get it till I got to Tantra, and I remembered who I was in a female body.
Yeah.
I just didn't get it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that we have these assignments to male or female body, but in we both male and female, we both resonate with masculine, feminine, but we resonate a little differently. I think sometimes just because of who we are, how we were raised, the culture, all those things that have a piece or a part of how we resonate, how we've grown up. You know, I think one of the things that's really sad about masculinity is how it got hijacked by something I call the patriarchy. It's not
you don't just call it that.
Not a conversation.
Everyone calls it that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this thing called the patriarchy has its own. This is another show, but this is something that I think has, as we look at masculinity, historically, we see that it has gone through quite a bit of struggle and stress. And there are things that have shown up historically in the 70s, for instance. You know, masculinity was probably better. Well, it was probably better looked at as being macho. Machismo.
When I think of the masculinity, I think of John Wayne. I think of the Marlboro Man.
Smoking a cigarette, riding a horse.
I think of cowboys. I think of
rolling a cigarette.
James Dean. These are the role. I think of a wayward, rebellious person who ended up driving himself off of a cliff. You know,
Marlon Brando.
Well, not so much.
Well, in Rebel was a Rebel Without a Cause.
I thought that was James Dean.
No, it's James Dean. He was in another one, but he was a motorcycle riding, black hat.
Yeah. That was something else.
Yeah, something else.
But anyway, yeah, I think of that. It was definitely more. I didn't think of women as being masculine. I didn't think of women as having masculine qualities. They weren't portrayed in media.
Oh no!
I'll tell you that. And then anybody who took on a masculine quality, like a leadership role, if she was in a corporation, they would say she's a bitch.
Right.
In a man, look, I used to say, you know, if you were twins.
That's right, Jeff Priest, the wild one. That's what it was. If
we were twins and I was the girl twin and you were the boy twin, if I knocked over my porridge or my orange juice out of my high chair, they would say, "Oh, she's going to be trouble." If you knocked and you were my boy twin and you knocked your juice off, they would say, "Oh, he's going to be like a killer on the football." That aggression
field.
The aggression was rewarded.
Right.
And the same thing in corporate. Like if a woman was taking on leadership qualities and those qualities, you had to have male qualities to make it in a corporation. Mm. And she was rising to the top. People would say, "Oh, she's a bitch."
Right.
And I remember someone, when I first started teaching Tantra, when I came out of corporate America and I founded Butterfly Workshops and I started running a company and we had, you know, different employees and stuff, I remember one of them saying to me, like, he might actually join us. He was in here last week. I remember him saying to me, you know, people are so afraid of you. Couldn't you be like a little softer and kinder? And I went, no. I said, you think Oprah's easy to work for? No. I said, no. I said, if people are scared of me and they get scared away, that's good. They shouldn't work for me anyway.
That's right.
I said, those are the kind of people that have flattened my tires. When I go out after a break, you know, like after a lunch break, I go back out and my tires would be flat by somebody who didn't have the nerve to stand up to me.
That's right.
So anyway, that's, you know, so I guess I was being accused of being a bitch too.
Well, this is kind of a fun conversation because I'm thinking about the masculine women who were portrayed in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and what it looked like then, and then what we see masculine women as now. Very different. It's a very different thought process or a very different view, because masculine women back then, they wore sports suits. They, I would say a close possibility here would have been like Charlie's Angels.
I just thought of Charlie's Angels. Now,
you?
wait a minute. They were all...
But they were feminine.
They were super femme, but they could go out and...
kick some ass.
Tell you.
Yeah.
They had to be portrayed with both characteristics.
Yeah.
Well, I'm more integrated now that I've been doing sacred sexuality for over 20 years.
I think over time, so is culture. The culture is now starting to look at what are these things we call masculine, feminine, and get some really good definitions, some new definitions even. And but one of the things that's difficult is that we went through a time, and probably still have a lot of time to go through, to start to move out of this thing called the wounded masculine and toxic masculinity. And these are a couple of topics that I think we're going to
talk about with Scott. Yeah.
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 So, but having a little fun with this, I don't want to date anybody in our chat, but who would you say was a good representation of masculinity in the female body? So female body masculinity in TV shows, like how they were written and things like that. I do think of Charlie's Angels, but I also think of Linda Carter in Wonder Woman. And she was masculine, but she was so feminine too. She was so beautiful, but she was like, she was masculine. She could move through.
She could kick your ass.
She could kick ass. So does masculine mean someone who kicks ass?
No, it just meant that it wasn't thought of as being as a woman doing that.
Right.
But as a woman doing those things. But as I said before, when I was in my competitive phase, I could do anything you could do and better. So if I had to kick your ass, I would.
Yeah, yeah. So Jeff DePriest just said, Joe on Facts of Life. Yes, dark hair. Yeah, Joe, Facts of Life.
I think he means Joey on Friends.
No, Joe on Facts of Life was a female.
Oh, female.
And Facts of Life was one of my favorite shows.
I never saw. So you're dating me now because
Tanya says 9 to 5.
9 to 5. Oh yes, I loved that movie. That was so great. Samantha Jones, Sex in the City. Yes.
Yeah.
I love
Sex
those.
in the City.
I love Sex in the City.
I haven't watched it really.
Samantha loved sex. Samantha simply loved sex. But she was also very, Samantha was the scariest one.
Was she someone who would penetrate?
She would penetrate.
Yeah.
She would penetrate your energy. If she was into sex, she would go right up to you. She would get frustrated if she wasn't getting any. Like, I remember... She did.
That sounds like the masculine male.
I remember the episode. Who said that? Careza?
Yeah.
Listen, see if you can remember the episode where she lays herself on the table and she puts sushi all over her body and she's waiting for him, that model who she's living with, to come home, and he never comes home, and she's laying on the table with all the food they were going to eat that night all over her body. She's there for hours, and then she's mad.
Oh, I'd have been mad after 15
she
minutes.
She was mad. Yes.
And I would have been I'd have had to cover my...
Oh, that was the movie? Oh, right. That wasn't in the show on the TV. Anyway, I'll never forget that one.
I would hate to have, some chopsticks going around my neck. Whoa, hold on. Let's stick to right here. I'm not putting any... No, I'm not doing that, just in case. I'd have to put on some shorts or something.
Anyway, yes, Samantha definitely had more masculine traits than Carrie Bradshaw.
Yeah.
You didn't watch that, though. So.
I never saw that movie. I'm sorry. It didn't appeal to me.
Oh, my God. It was so good.
Yeah?
We have to revisit that.
Okay.
Anyway.
Right. You're going to have to hypnotize me.
Yeah, look at all the people on here going, yes. Oh, my God. That was the movie. They get it.
So how many of you recommend that I watch Sex in the City?
Just go yes in the chat.
If you feel like I should be watching
yes,
Sex and the
please,
City,
and more.
then I will. If I get at least three, then I'll do it. Me. Okay, that's one. That's one. Haven't watched it. Tanya said haven't watched it. Okay, Careza says yes. Scotty says yes. All right, well, there you go. There's your three. Okay, everybody. So we'll watch Sex and the City, and then we'll let you know next week.
But wait a minute. Here's the thing. I say he should watch the whole series.
Well, I was talking about the movie.
I think you should watch the whole series.
I just think
they even have one about Tantra. So funny.
Can we negotiate this? I mean...
Yeah.
Because I want to. I'll watch the movie. Rewards. I don't necessarily want to get stuck in.
No, but the movie.
30 hours of.
The movie is after
TV.
The series.
Oh, that's good enough for me.
Oh no!
I'm sorry,
I have to explain everything. Sorry. Okay, whatever.
You could stop and explain. I mean, we got
Okay.
We'll get it on.
I mean, you won't know who Mr. Big is or anything.
There's a Mr. Big.
The series is awesome, Carissa. Yeah, Mr. Big is the person she's in love with.
Who?
Carrie. Carrie's the main character.
Okay. I know. I think I know who Mr. Big is.
Yeah, he plays. Later on, he goes on to play cops. He always plays cops and district attorneys.
Okay, I think I know who he is. Not good looking.
Maybe you can get a show of yours
salt
in exchange.
Pepper, black hair.
Jeff, we have shows of his in exchange. We're now going through the entire series of
The Blacklist.
The Blacklist with James Spader. He loves it, and I wasn't going to watch it, but now I'm totally into it. So he gets shows. The things I don't like are these robot shows and these things about outer space, and I still even watch them.
Yeah.
Because we're in COVID times. We do things we never did before.
It's true. My favorite show for outer space right now is The Expanse.
Is that what we were watching?
No, we haven't watched that at all.
Okay.
I don't think you could stomach it. It's very
I don't like some of these things.
It's not something I think you would like.
But Jeff, yes, I am very negotiable, and I'm open to some of his shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yes.
And I've watched a few of your shows. Like we watched Sex Education, which I actually liked, and I watched a little bit of The Crown. I got bored with it.
You hated it.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
I'll watch the movie.
Subject.
I'll watch the movie.
Back to the subject. We could say.
All right, Chrissy.
What is she saying?
She said I'd like the 4400. But back to the subject.
Okay. Back to the subject.
Masculinity.
We could say that Queen Elizabeth, as she was portrayed in The Crown, was pretty masculine.
Yeah.
She could just cut. She would interrupt and just cut through things. But her husband, even more masculine, even though he felt emasculated by only being a prince, not being king. He doesn't want to talk about this.
I do. I actually do. I was not the portrayal of Queen Elizabeth by the younger when she was younger.
Yeah.
Was done really well. And then the next version of her as an older, I wasn't too interested in. But the younger was interesting. She was interesting, and she was feminine, but yet she was the queen. So she had to be this level of distance from everybody because she embodied the crown.
She had that. But that aloofness.
Right. She had to.
I think that's a very masculine trait.
I agree. And what was interesting to me, if they portrayed her accurately, what was really interesting to me is how uneducated this woman is or was when it comes to real world things. Like all she knew about was the Constitution of England or the UK or England, because she is the Queen of England. And so like if they were accurate in portraying her up until a certain point where she actually said, no, I need an education. She actually got educated. I think it was tragic. This poor woman.
Tragic.
She was not, and it wasn't her fault.
You can blame that on the patriarchy.
That's the patriarchy, clearly.
She's a queen. What does she need to know?
Yeah. She needs to know how the Constitution works, and that's
nothing else.
She didn't know.
She doesn't have to add 2 and 2 together.
She didn't know math. She didn't know areas, geometry. It was really interesting to see that, and then for her to look at herself and go, I don't know anything. Like all these other children are going through school, and their schooling was completely different. I know how to ride a horse. I know a little bit about the Constitution. I know some of these things, and then she got it sorted out. Like she straightened it out. So I admire her for on that level. And yeah, that took something for her to be able to actually go to someone and say, I need you to tutor me in these things. So
I imagine that they portrayed that correctly. I don't see how they could make that up.
yeah, well, I hope they did. And if they did, like I said, I think that was really admirable.
Okay, back to the subject. Why do you want to say something about the patriarchy? Let's find out about that.
Why do...
You have very strong feelings about it.
Well, the patriarchy, it shows up, and there are results that you can see that happen in the patriarchy that if there were no patriarchy, in other words, if it was done a completely different way with a completely different reason for the output or the outcome, you could see it differently. So an example would be how we've raised boys in the past to boys don't cry, men don't cry, and that is a stamping down or a tamping down of male emotions. Mm-hmm. Men cry. We have deep reasons for why we shed tears. And I'm talking about the men, masculine. If you put all that together, there is this thing that has us really have emotions, and deep and powerful emotions. And what the patriarchy says is, you shall not have those emotions. We can show anger, but we can't show tears. We can show... one of the things that I remember hearing was, never apologize. Well, why not? Because it shows weakness. I was like, really? An apology is weakness? Like saying you're sorry for something either you did wrong, you said wrong, or maybe a intention? I don't get it. I don't understand why men shouldn't apologize. Well, that was something that I was raised with.
I think my father was too. My father could never admit that he did something wrong. I would have to push his face. You know how you rub a dog's face in their poop?
Yep.
I'd have to rub my father's face in his poop.
Literally emasculate.
I'd have to do that for him to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake.
And what's the opposite of that? If we were to teach men how to really understand their feelings, to understand what it is when tears come to bear, what it is to actually apologize for something that was done that was wrong, what is the result of that? Well, I would say that it's a very healthy masculine male. And yeah, men and women are separated.
And they're not taught how to deal with menstruation, even in the Jewish religion.
Yeah.
Well,
that's patriarchy.
That's patriarchy. And what about
men are over women?
What about
that ideology that men are over women and women should submit to men? That's patriarchy.
What about white privilege, like white people who made other people their slaves, and then tried to make everyone their slaves, including their wives or their children? Yeah. Those people who had 20 kids so that the kids could work the fields.
Yeah. That's patriarchy. Well, I have it that the patriarchy is anything that either subverts or blocks the advancement of anyone, including men. So men, women, children. Right. The patriarchy holds on to this, illusory power that they have that keeps everyone else at bay. So I would say racism is another example.
Yeah, all the isms
of the patriarchy. Ageism, right? Children should be seen and not heard. Why the fuck would anybody say that? Children are brilliant. And some children are rambunctious, but they can be, shared.
They can add to your life.
Hey, listen.
Why did you have them if you don't want to hear them?
Right.
To me, it's like, shut up.
So I think the patriarchy has a lot to do with how masculinity became toxic and wounded and a lot of the other negative things that we put around masculinity.
Yeah.
The Me Too movement
Yeah.
was and is a response to this patriarchy, this masculinity that says I can do whatever the fuck I want
To you.
to you, and there's not anything
And
you
with
can say.
you, and there's nothing you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim Boy, thank you for the follow. Hello, how are you? Welcome. You are on a live stream for lovers. We are the Extraordinary Lovers TV.
And
people.
sometimes we talk about things that get in the way of love. And one of the things we're talking about right now is the patriarchy. Today we're talking about masculinity, but we happen to stumble upon the patriarchy because we did. And we're not coming at it from the perspective of Me Too. Because that's the pendulum swinging back the other way and being just as dangerous.
Yep.
Or maybe not just as dangerous, but dangerous nonetheless. Me Too. Women who think they could take out any man and like just point the finger at him and he's gone. You know, he loses his job or his reputation. And then there were some people who needed their jobs taken away from them.
That's right.
Like Bill Cosby.
Yeah,
So-
like Matt Lauer.
Yeah. So there, you know, it's crazy. Yeah. Our world is crazy. And we're inside of COVID.
Right.
So we're crazy COVID, we're crazy patriarchy, we're crazy about things. And we're going to try and come back to like what we envision for healthy masculine today. Like what we envision in all of us, all of our healthy masculine. Like I learned that my competition was not for and in favor of me. And it wasn't for and in favor of my partners. And it wasn't for and in favor of my friends. Like blindly competing with people for no reason. I learned that from the patriarchy, and that was not like competing. Just like now I collaborate, and collaboration is so much more fruitful. It has so many more rewards. I mean, if I look at my relationship with Brianna, you know, I'm not on with her right now. She's not on the show right now. But if I was still competing and killing off my competitors, where would Brianna be?
Right.
And look at the addition to my life. Look at how my life has just blown up.
Yeah.
Based on my relationship with Brianna. So I mean, and I can, you know, I can't say she's common in my life. She is certainly unique and an individual. But I have collaborations with other people that are just so stimulating and strong.
Yeah.
She happening to be like at the top of that list.
I get it. We've got a couple of comments here from Jim Boy. He's saying it's hard to be a man, and especially with these whining women. And
I talked about that today on the earlier thing I was on.
That's a great comment. And the truth is, it's hard to be a woman. You know, look at both sides of this thing.
It's hard.
Here's one of the interesting things about when women whine a lot. Oftentimes the reason that they're complaining, and it's the same fucking thing over and over and over again, is because they're not feeling heard. They're not feeling seen. So when a woman is saying the same thing over and over and over again, she's not being heard.
Or she thinks she's not being heard because we have an example of somebody who keeps saying the same things over again, and we're like rolling our eyes already.
That's why I said it. She doesn't feel heard.
She doesn't feel heard.
And a lot of times, this is where we get into how to actually hear and to communicate, right, what it is that you're hearing, so that you can, so that she can get, okay, he got me, okay, I got it. So, sometimes what has to happen is we need to be retrained. Like you've been trained your entire life to be this certain way, and that's the way it's supposed to be. Again, I feel like a lot of that comes from the patriarchy. But here's the interesting thing. If you have not been trained on what it means to just relate to someone else who's obviously going to be in the feminine, man, you don't know, you're stuck. You're going to feel like she's whining all the time. She's going to feel like you won't listen to anything she says. You're too hard. You know, well,
she's going to feel like you're gaslighting her or stonewalling her.
Yeah, here we are. He
doesn't listen to me.
In the modern culture. Here it is.
We're stuck. So the idea is, how do we bridge that? Michael and I always say, how do we come back to love? And we teach people ways to come back to love and ways to stop complaining about each other and ways to actually hear each other. So it's learnable and doable. It's that we find ourselves in this situation that you have just mentioned,
Yep.
because this is where we're ending up based on things that we haven't been able to totally change yet.
It's funny. He says it's hard to be my woman, so she tells me. I laugh at that. Well, she's not your woman.
She's her own woman.
I got news for you. So I love this woman, but she's not my woman. I have no ownership of her. And I'm not her man. Although we love each other, we have this amazing experience of life together, we don't claim each other as ownership. There's no ownership here. She is a sovereign woman. She can do whatever she wants, and she chooses to spend time with me. I'm really blessed by that. Well, the same thing is true of her. I am my own man. I'm sovereign. I am, like I said, I'm my own man. So, but I've also really fallen in love with this woman, and I spend time with her.
So I want to say to you, though, because I know what you're talking about, because I want to say that people have said to me that it's not easy to be with me. Because I come with a Surgeon General's warning that says, I will disrupt your life. So I hear you, and I want to let you know that you're heard. And I want to invite you to check out the other stuff that we do besides this TV show being only one of them. And that's because we actually teach people how to communicate and get along, and we make it easier for you. We have taken couples who are at war. We thought they were going to kill each other.
Like, really, they actually said that I just want to smash him in the head.
We've had people say, I just can't stand you. This is our last ditch effort. And they have taken their last ditch effort, and they have come to class with us. And now they're all ooey gooey, lovey dovey, ooey cooey. I mean, they are. I call it oogie boogie. Like they're all yeah, over stupid stuff.
Right.
Over stupid stuff. They're so displeased with each other, and then like the stupid stuff seems like the straw that breaks the camel's back. Mm-hmm. But I want to also say this to you, and I say this a lot in our classes. When you're in relationship with somebody, unless you're super aware, you're also in relationship with their parents. Mm. Like when you two are arguing, notice if you're fighting, if you are the one fighting, or you're your mother or your father fighting your mother or your father, or fighting their mother or their father. Sometimes, you know how we always say, I'm never going to be like my parents. And then we turn out to be like these people that we thought were our idiot parents. And we said, oh, I'm never going to be like that. And then we turn out to be like that. And we go on these automatic, like we get into a fight with our partner, and somehow there's like this, something opens up, and we start to resemble our parents and the craziness of our parents fighting with each other.
What's worse is we resemble children.
Yeah, teenagers.
Like we stop being adults, and all of a sudden it's all about being right and not losing ground or not losing face or whatever that is. Yeah, I feel you, brother. I listen. I spent 16 years in a marriage that 10 years of it was probably it went 10 years.
10
too
years
long.
too long.
Yeah, I should have got out after 6 years. The idea that you're having these experiences right now, and that it's anything but normal, it would be crazy.
That's why we call this extraordinary lovers.
Right. We could call it abnormal lovers too, but because we're not the norm. We don't do the normal things. We don't argue. We don't fight. We actually have adult conversations about things that we're concerned about. So that's one of the things that I think would really make a difference in the world if the world could learn this in such in a mass way. But I feel for you, man. I get it.
He was the person that used to be nicer to the waitress in the restaurant than he was to his kids and his
people sitting around the table.
Spouse. He would be really polite to the waiter or the waitress, to the waitstaff, and then he would turn back around and be sort of a bummer to his to his immediate family. That
Yeah.
was his family. He created them. So
Guilty.
yeah, but you've come such a long way. You've
you.
come a long way, baby.
Thank you, baby.
I was partially disruptive in your life, and you disrupted your life before that.
That's true. I did.
You did.
Yeah, I made some changes, really needed changes before that. So
It's really good.
I'm just curious. Has Scott joined us yet, Chrissy?
Wasn't he on? Oh, has he joined us on the Zoom?
Is Scott on the Zoom call yet? Scott, if you're not on the Zoom,
Get on that Zoom.
check with Chrissy. Let's get you that Zoom call.
Yes. She says, yep.
Yeep. Okay. Is he there?
How long have we been together, he wants to know.
6 years.
6 years. 6 years. I'm very proud of that, I have to say. Because this is my longest relating.
We're heading towards the 7th year, which is, what they say about
7-year itch.
7-year itch.
Itch.
Yeah.
Ooh,
I don't know. I'm itchy.
I'm itchy. You look like you've been together longer. Yeah, we feel like we've been together forever. It seems like that sometimes.
Yeah.
But we're different. We're definitely different to each other than we've ever been in any other relating that we've been in. And and now, like we got to clean things up right away because we can't sit here under the banner extraordinary lovers and be assholes.
We could be all lovey-dovey on screen, and then when we walk away, it's
No, we can't.
cursing each other.
I couldn't. I can't live with that.
Fuck that.
I'm like all about being who I say I am.
Yeah.
And showing up as that. So we work things out right away. We clean things up really fast. And then we teach other people to do that too. And people in our life can tell you that we do that with them too.
Yeah.
Not just with our major relationship, but with everybody else.
Yeah, we get it sorted out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an important way to live. I mean, to be with everybody, especially with your partner, and probably even more so with your partner. Because there's, people in your life that you could just kind of like, yeah, I don't really need to spend time with you. That's cool. We'll tell you all about that. But right now, what we're going to do is take just a 5-minute break. We're going to come back in about 5 minutes. Jim, stick around. We have someone who's really important to us. He's a special, I can't even, I would say not only just an ally, a colleague, just a man who's like really powerful.
He's also been in the Sex and Happiness Apprentice program for months now. It must seem like years, Scott.
At least.
So he's been studying with me to take some of the stuff that I have and put it into his professional and personal life. So we trust him.
And yeah, he's accomplished. And so when we bring him on, when we come back after the break, we're going to talk more about masculinity, but we're going to talk about it in terms of compassionate masculinity and something that I think is a real upgrade to society and our culture. And Scott's got the handle on that. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you very, very soon.
Potty break.
Potty break. Ready to go back? Are we ready to come back?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
We're back. There we are. All right.
Okay, we are back.
On screen, we have the one, the only, Scott Kaltenbaugh. Did I say it right?
It's close. It's Kaltenbaugh. Yeah.
Kaltenbaugh. Okay.
Yeah.
It
gets everybody. Don't worry.
We're going to call you Scott K. Scotty K.
That works for me.
We have a friend,
when I was
Scotty
a teacher, I
O.
went by Mr. K. Like it's all good.
We have a friend whose name's Scotty O. We call him Scotty O. So that's why he's been calling you Scotty a lot. Yeah. Scotty K.
So we've got some reverb. That was something that we were concerned about.
Well,
all right.
So Scott, let's tell people who you are. Tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do. What you've been practicing this now for weeks. What's your vision in the world?
Yeah. I mean, my vision, oh man, I want everybody to just be the most amazing, empowered version of themselves that they can be. And in particular, I love working with young men around this stuff, but that goes for everybody. And yeah, I got into this really like years and years ago when I was in undergrad. This is my long story of my path to this, but like when I was in undergrad, I took a class in feminist philosophy, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm on board with this stuff, right? I got this. But then after I sat with it for a little while, I was like, okay, all right, as a man, what do I do with this? Like, I just didn't know, apart from like, I'm just going to be a good man, like myself.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to do. And so I sat with it for years, honestly. Like, I was an educator. I taught math. I taught English abroad. I did lots of cool, awesome stuff, but like, I didn't know really what to do. And then finally, I was running an after-school program for a high school in Columbus, Ohio. And one of my jobs was to find cool programs for my kids to do. And I found this really neat program that was recommended to me. It was for young women. And it was about like women's empowerment and like finding themselves and all this great stuff. I was like, oh, this is awesome. I love it. Got them in, you know, the young women who were taking the program, they absolutely loved it. I was like, okay, cool. Now let me just go out and find the same thing for my young men.
Nothing.
Crickets. Like, there was nothing. Even
Nothing.
in a city the size of Columbus, there was no program like it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, wow, all right, this is no good. So I just casually started one myself. You know, I got a couple of the other staff members with me. And we just had a meeting once a week after school with the men. We're like, okay, we'll call it Guys Group for now until we can think of a better name. And then we never thought of a better name, so it just stayed Guys Group for a couple of years. And it really was. It was, you know, it was very casual. We didn't have a curriculum or anything planned. We just talked to the guys about stuff that we thought they would need to know about as they grew up.
Mm.
And, you know, so that's when I really started to get this sense that, like, my way to contribute, my way to like really work in this sphere was to work with young men and really help men like get to a good point of understanding how they can be fully themselves in a way that like was awesome and supportive for the world around them. And just like full of that love and compassion, but also with that sense of self, with that sense of power.
Yeah. So. Well, and I like this whole way of like approaching how to take young men and actually give them skills that they need to be in their masculine and understand the feminine that they also have and understand. So what you're doing is really important, and I'm impressed by how much of it you do and how much of it is like going into school systems and working with educators. You're an educator yourself, but it's really important. One of the things that we talked about just a little while ago, you were listening in, was this thing called the patriarchy, like how that is just, it's almost like you're born into this ocean and you're a fish and you don't know that there's this thing such as air. You know, can you speak to that a little bit? Do you find that that's a truism, or do you have a different perspective on that? Because I'm open to hear.
No, I think you're spot on. And one of the things that you all brought up that I thought was especially important is like, it's all of these things together. You know, it's patriarchy, it's white supremacy, it's you know, all of these isms, all of these problems that like give us messages about who we need to be, how we need to behave, like what the structure of our society should be and should act, and like puts people in these like powerless places. And it really is, you know, detrimental to everybody, right? You know, like I don't try and pretend that men aren't privileged, but we're still hurt by this, and it sucks.
Totally hurt.
Yeah.
Totally hurt.
And I think like this is one of the things, when I started getting into this work, I came into it from this perspective of like, I need to help men be better men so that they're not bad to women, right? I don't want them to be, you know, abusive partners. I don't want them to be toxic men. Like, but then as I started doing more work, it was really like, no, like, these guys are suffering from this too, and like they need this support, like, for them as human beings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And the great thing is like all of these things that I teach, all of these messages around this stuff, it's for everybody, right? You know, it's not just for boys, it's not just for men, it's not just for male-bodied people. right? Now, I talk about it with them through that lens of masculinity. And because and we talk about like these are the messages that you're getting because you're a man, because you have the body that you do, right? These are the messages that society is going to give you. And like those can be positive messages, those can be negative messages, but like just know that like that's how we're going to talk about this.
Yeah.
But in reality, this is just about being a good person.
Yes, so good. So good. I mean, that's so good. It really is. And thinking for yourself and thinking outside the box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so, I want to tell you something. It's funny. In the 70s, I used to run women's groups. So I started, my first women's workshop was called Body, Mind, and Spirit. I taught it in 1978. And it was like an away retreat for women to come. We did emotion release. We did all the things, but I didn't have them, they weren't packaged yet. And then I used to teach assertive communication for women at the Cambridge and Boston adult education centers. And then I started teaching assertiveness for men at the Cambridge and Boston. And then there were a bunch of men in my class who said, we want a men's support group. We want you to lead it. And I was like, wait a minute. And they said, no, you're the only person we trust. We don't trust other men. We don't want to have a man leading it. We want you.
How interesting.
It was so for 2 years, I led a men's consciousness raising group, a men's support group. And finally I found a man therapist that I could work with, who I trusted, and who I introduced him to them gradually, and then they trusted him, and then he took over the men's group for me.
Right.
So basically he was your apprentice.
Yeah, he was. But the thing is that what you're saying, like you looked around for a program and there wasn't one. Right. I said to them, no, you have to have your own program. You can't have me. And they said, no, we have to have you. There is no program.
There's no one else doing it.
So yeah, I've had the privilege. I consider that they wanted me to be with them and boost them and teach them the same things. I considered that to be a privilege and an honor, that they asked me to do that. So I love that you're doing that. I'm thrilled to know, and that younger men are benefiting, because if you don't get people when they're young, it's harder to untrain them and reach. It's harder to disrupt their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll just they'll get more benefit of it. The earlier you start, and I work with men, young men in elementary school, as young as 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, and all the way up through guys that are in college, and you're still teaching, you're still helping with the same kind of lessons, right? You're still just helping them find out who they truly are, be that good person that they want to be, separate out the messages that they're getting, be powerful partners, be powerful friends. You just frame it differently when it's to a 3rd grader than when it is to a college kid. The college kid, you can talk more specifically about, sex and relationships and all this, but when it's a 3rd grader, you talk about friendships and hugs and things like that. And it all can carry the same beautiful messages.
So it's age appropriate and it's relational. So it's a lot of what Laurie and I talk about in the Extraordinary Lovers program is that we talk about how to relate to someone and how to relate to them on their terms. Like it's a relating, it's a verb. Laurie loves saying it's a verb. It really is. We don't have a relationship, although what people probably see is, oh, they have this amazing relationship. And I tell people a good relationship, is one that you've done the work of relating to one another. And so we kill the relationship. We basically sink the ship because that's, what's the point of it? So I really do resonate with this idea that you're relating to young men and helping them to relate to others on like those types of terms. And I hope I'm not putting words into your mouth. That's age appropriate and helps them to really have healthy relationships, if you will.
Yeah. And it's so true. And just like by getting them started early, everything builds from there. It's like, yeah, like there's work to be done with adult men, and I love working with adult men as well, and adult women, and and everybody, regardless of what their gender identity is. But there is something about when people are young, like they're finding it, they're trying to explore, and just giving them these little nudges on their path. Because as you all were talking earlier about listening to kids, like kids are brilliant, they're so smart.
Yes.
And that's why so much of the work that I do and the way that I work with these kids is just by asking them questions. My teaching style is very much just like, let's have a talk about it, let's just like, I'll throw out a question, get them to talk about stuff, and then I'll fill in gaps if I feel like they're missing things, and I'll give them some frameworks and structures for stuff. But the wisdom comes from them, because they know what it's like. They know their experience better than I do.
Right. Yeah. We have a question from the chat. So
Yeah.
what we love about this is that this is a live stream for lovers. We have a live chat, and one of our chat members, Tanya, is asking, what age do you recommend starting?
I mean, I think that this is something that you can begin as young as from when they're born. I mean, I don't work with anyone that young, and as of yet, I'm not a parent, though hopefully in the next few years we'll see. That's in the plans, but
That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is, so much of what I do is like helping people understand who they really are and what their values are. And I try and tell them, like, look, who you are shouldn't be a carbon copy of me. Like, I'm not trying to get a bunch of little Scott clones running around. That'd be terrifying. I love me and I'm amazing, but one of me is plenty for this world. No, like, I want them to be the best versions of themselves. And so even when they're super, super young, they can start to be like understanding and reflecting on, like, who am I? What do I get excited about? Like, ooh, which toys do I like? Which, and getting to that thing of like, who cares if it's, the Barbie or the fire truck or the G.I. Joe or the shovel that they like? Like, throw them all out there, see what they get excited
That's
about.
right.
And encourage that excitement.
That's
Yeah.
right. Well, Tanya has a bunch of nieces, at least one that I know of, but I think she has others. So she probably has some personal stake in knowing
Yeah.
what you do. I'm thinking, I just have to tell you this. You don't know this, but I have to send you this. I made a film about college privileged athletes
Yeah.
and how they get away with sexual bad things. And
Right.
it's called The Big T, Testosterone, Blessing of the Gods or Curse. And I can send you the short, like I can send you the trailer.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. I went on to a college campus and I taught a bunch of people how to do yoga boxing, and I taught them how to do boundaries. I taught them the wheel of consent.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
let me tell you something. I wanted to have a TV show where I went to different college campuses and I didn't scold the boys. I would teach them that, like, having sex with something other than a comatose, roofied co-ed would be much more gratifying than taking advantage of somebody who was like OD'd on the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get, because of, I was trying to get first of all, I couldn't get into any college. Like, they wouldn't even answer my phone calls. And second of all, I tried to get sponsorship, and none of the sponsors would talk to me because they were too tied into the Super Bowl, where all these kids then, or many of them end up.
Patriarchy.
Right.
Patriarchy. Like,
Yeah.
everyone was afraid to. The only one I thought would actually sponsor me, and then it didn't happen, was Gillette. Because Gillette was talking about toxic masculinity
Yeah.
at the time.
Right.
But anyway, it never went anywhere. I made this really cool film, but I'll send you the short. I'll send you the
Yeah.
trailer
That'd be
to it.
amazing.
You could, like, here's the thing. If you used it and opened it up with them for conversation, that would make me feel like it got somewhere.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
And we always have when I do my workshops with these young men, it's usually anywhere from, depending on what the school can allow, it's anywhere from like an 8 to a 16 week course where we do once a week, and we always have a consent session. Usually it's over 2 days. Usually, like if we can, we have like 2 days for relationships, 2 days for consent, and because it is so powerful, and we can even have those conversations with sixth graders. With sixth graders, you talk about consent around hugs. With middle schoolers, you start to talk around consent around relationships. And with high schoolers, you can even be more blatant about it.
It is so good.
The kids, they get it, But,
Yes.
But so often, and this was one of the fascinating things that I learned when I started studying this stuff is, when they do surveys and examinations about like sexual assault and these kinds of crimes on campus, the men just like don't even often recognize what is non-consent.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And it's like, so like, yeah, like if you don't even know what qualifies as this, like, of course you're going to slip into it. And, it's not to excuse them. It's not to forgive them, but it's to help us know where to start.
Exactly. Like, people don't know until they know. It's like it's like asleep, awake.
Right. Yeah.
So Caressa just asked me if I ever did a private
sex education course.
I did.
For teenagers.
I did. I actually did when I was part of my physical immortality community.
That's right.
A lot of the people had teenage kids, and they brought them to me of one whole day. And I worked with the kids on consent. I worked with the kids on power, like being powerful, what it meant to be powerful. It's stand in your no. I taught them how to use prophylactics. I taught them, different things. But the most important thing that I taught them about was not being pressured by their parents or their other kids to be, like I said, your body, you own your body. Yep. So your body is yours. You do what you want with it when you want. And I would ask you to not allow yourself to be pressured into doing something that isn't your time yet. And then I taught then I had a session with the parents, and I taught the parents what I taught the kids.
Yeah,
love it. Yeah.
Well, I coined a phrase or a saying, which goes like this: consent. Don't have sex without it. But inside of that. Consent, don't even hug without it. Like I will not hug someone unless I ask, may I hug you?
Yeah.
It's not may I have a hug or can I have a hug. It's not I'm asking you to give me something. I'm asking, may I give something to you? May I hug you? This is an outward expression. And I have 2 grandkids, and one of them is still young, but the other one, Devin, he's 4, 5, 6 years old. I started going when he's what do you call it, step grandson. So my
super smart also, like
really
brainiac
and adorable and cute, and I would go over and visit my kids and my daughter-in-law would say, Brandy would say, give Papa Mike a hug, and I would look at Devin and I would say, Devin, you don't have to hug me.
Yeah.
We don't. I said we could fist bump, we could elbow bump. I said, or if you want to hug, I will hug you. And he sometimes would be like, no, just fist bump. And I was good with that because he was giving consent to that.
Because he was the only kid on the planet who didn't have to hug his grandparents, his aunts, and his uncles.
That's right.
And get pinched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
Well, and Chrissy was talking. Good. Chrissy was talking about having. Let me see if I can get back up to it. Hold on. Here it is. She said she has a boundary around being touched in any way without consent, and people are often offended by it, and that's too bad.
That's their problem.
That's their problem. Know.
And I love that because one of the things that is so important for us to understand and like everybody to really get, when we start to understand boundaries, is we have to understand that other people's boundaries aren't about us.
That's right.
Right? And this is something that I really like try and drill into the people that I work with. And I'll tell this story because this is a story that I always use when I do consent talks. And I have consent to tell this story, by the way. So
That's
I had a partner.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a partner, and we had already become somewhat physical. Like we were kissing, we were having a certain relationship, and at one point, like, this person was like at the sink, she was doing dishes, and I just, like, in my caring compassion, like, walked up behind her and like put my hands on her shoulders, just because I like connecting with her, and like that felt less intrusive than what we had done up to that point.
Right.
Well, she got very like tense and freaked out, and because it was a trigger, but it was a trigger from past stuff that she had had. And I had there was a moment there where, if what I could have done is I could have been super defensive, and I could have been like, why are you getting all upset about this? Like, I've never done anything to hurt you. Like, why are you having this reaction? Like, what's wrong? Like I didn't do anything wrong. Or I could meet her with love, and I could be like, hey, what's going on? Like, okay, let's stop. Let's reassess. Let's figure out this. And to like truly understand that reaction, that boundary had nothing to do with me.
Not a thing.
It's so powerful. And it, like you two talked about, you're always come back to find the love, come back to find the love. Like, that was that moment of like, okay, a boundary's been breached purely accidentally, but a boundary's been breached. How can we come to this from love? How can we talk? And like, so we got to fully understand what was going on in that situation, and we built and we've grown to a place, and it just became a whole beautiful thing. And so I tell people, like, other people's boundaries are hugely important, and they have nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
That's right.
Nothing. They are not. Although in that thing that Brianna recommends, the song from Transparent, from the show Transparent, the mother sings a song, "Your boundaries are my triggers." But that was very manipulative. I mean, that was super manipulative. Boundaries don't have anything to do. To take somebody else's boundary personally is like such a waste of our energy.
Yeah.
And time and, just capacity. It's like, do you take it personally if your cat or dog doesn't come and sit in your lap? Like, so what? They don't feel like it in that moment. You don't like make them wrong for it. So you make a kid wrong? It's ridiculous. Yeah. Or your partner wrong?
Yeah, here's this kid. It's like being forced to hug grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, whatever. And the kid may, in the moment, be like, I just don't want to be around anybody.
I don't want to be touched.
Can I go to my room now? Like, it's just I don't like, and yet because they're children, we don't respect their sovereignty and their autonomy. These are people. These are human beings, and they do have a level of autonomy, and they should be respected for that. And there are certain things in which we have to guide, right? An autonomous child, a sovereign child. Yeah. But, consent is one of the areas that we should start off with them very, very young, where they know how to say no. They know how to set a boundary and say, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend you, and I don't want to hug you. Yeah. And
no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Even if you're Santa.
Especially if you're or a Catholic priest. We won't go down that road. But it's important in all of those situations, as silly and as funny as they sound. It is important for a child to be able to tell a priest no, or a pastor, or anybody, no. I have a boundary, and you are not going to step past. You shall not pass. Right? Yeah.
And boundaries are such a powerful place, and we can own our boundaries when we feel powerful, and owning our boundaries reinforces our power and makes us feel powerful. Right. So not only are you keeping them safe by having them be able to set their own boundaries, but they're learning how to be powerful. They're learning how to be these amazing individuals and decide for themselves, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, this is okay, this is not okay.
Yeah. So good.
So this is good stuff from...
Well, we have a question, but we have to acknowledge Andy, don't we?
Yeah, Andy, welcome back. I wanted to say that. And we also have a question from Tanya. She said, Scott, what are some of the topics that boys have the hardest time integrating?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Honestly, I think one of the biggest things is being able to see things from somebody else's perspective. We always do a part about understanding our identity and, our identity around all of these major social ideas and social constructions, gender, race, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, religion, like all these things. We do this investigation and they explore for each other. And we talk about really understanding where other people are coming from. And that, we're going to have different places of power or less power in our world, depending on what our identity is. And it's when we can really sit and understand what somebody else is going through. And like, we'll never be able to truly experience it, right? But we can start to wrap our brains around it. And so especially being able to see like, oh, okay, like this is why female-bodied people, this is why women have this very different experience of the world than I do as a young man, right? This is why my female peers have that different experience and go through this. And this is why my trans peers like are having a different experience. And so that's a struggle because they're already just trying to figure out their own lived experience at that point. They're still just trying to figure out what it means to be in their body and have their own experience. And so trying to get them to start to have that empathy and have that compassion for other people, like they can do it, but that's often a stumbling block and it's often a big challenge.
Yeah.
But when you see them get that moment of empathy, it's so cool. It's so powerful.
Wow.
That's beautiful. I'm glad she asked that question. Thank you, Tanya. That was a really great question. If anyone has any other questions for Scott or for us about this, about the topic of, like we're talking about masculinity, we're talking about the masculinity education of boys, the lack of education that boys get in terms of consciousness, in terms of sensitivity, connection, compassion, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, Scott, now are you aware of how many programs there are out there? Like, do you have any idea?
There are when I got into this and started exploring, I realized that there are more than I thought there were. There are not as many as I would love them to be, and also more of them tend to be adult centered. There are a bunch out there that are good, like, we're going to teach men to be solid, powerful men, and not in a toxic way. I mean, I'm sure that there are plenty that are like, reinforcing those patriarchal problems, but there are plenty of really good programs out there as well.
Yeah.
But I don't see as many for youth, certainly not that are operating in this kind of way. There's a lot of mentorship programs, which is always good, and connecting young men one-on-one with a good mentor. That's great. But certainly the kind of thing that I do where I'm going into a school and trying to meet young men where they're at, that seems like it's pretty rare. You might get some that do it like a one-off thing where they'll go in and talk to young men for an hour and then they're gone. It's better than nothing, but yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like you could start a pilot program and then have apprentices, and then I know somebody who can help you with that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Who?
No,
Who can help him with that? Well, I was thinking,
Brianna and me.
this was going on in the back of my head when the question was asked. Have you ever created something for children? And I thought to myself, wow, what a collaboration that would be to have like a sex and happiness
For children.
And how what an amazing just a contribution would be to that. I really think that would be really powerful. So that's something to talk about offline.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask the question because we had another question, but I want to slip this one in. I'm sorry, Chrissy, but I'm slipping this one in. And that is, what do you say to somebody that says, yeah, but you know what? I want my kids to respect my parents. I want them to be affectionate to my parents. That's why I tell them, to hug them. And that's why I tell them that, What would you say to a parent that would say that to you?
Yeah, what I think the key is a couple things. One is build the relationship, right? If your kids aren't interested in hugging their grandparents, maybe it's because they just don't see them enough. They don't get to connect with them enough. They're not really having that quality time to build it to a point where they want to hug somebody, right? Because that can be a sign of a genuine connection. Two is that some people just aren't huggers, right? And no matter how close the connection, that's just not their thing, and that's okay. I happen to be a big hugger. I have a Free Hugs t-shirt that, I love to wear out in public when we can. And I love to see the random people that come up and give me hugs, and it's great. But that's me. That's not everybody.
Right, that is not me.
Yeah.
I could just say that. That's definitely not me.
Especially not during COVID.
No, but that's not me anyway. I don't like, because I hate other people's perfume.
Oh, yeah.
I hate aftershave stuff.
Yeah.
I hate hair product. I hate everything like that. And people hug me, and then I'm
you smell like that?
It was like that 10 minutes ago about the coffee. I can't we were just at this ISTA core gathering, and one of the facilitators sitting on the couch with me at a time when we were facilitating something. I had this smell. I looked around the room and I went, I wonder who has this smell on.
Yeah.
And then I moved away. Michael opened his eyes at some point and looked around. He thought I'd left the room.
I couldn't find her. I was like, where'd Laurie go?
And I was all the way in a corner getting away from the smell.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm not a good hugger because I don't like what people put on their bodies. I don't like the product.
Yeah.
And I think that's an excellent thing for people to understand about why some people just don't want to show affection in that way. And so if they're okay, is the problem that my child and their grandparents don't have a good relationship and that's why that's not happening? Or is it because this just isn't my kid's thing, right?
You have to find that out.
If you can look at it and see that the relationship is a good quality, child grandparent relationship, awesome. Embrace that in whatever way it looks like.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What was the question that Chrissy asked?
Let me go back and
You
find it.
forgot.
It was a good question. She said, what are the biggest contributors to toxic masculinity in our culture today? And she said any one of us could answer that one.
Yeah, my one word that I go to again and again and again, and Laurie, you brought this up earlier, was power, right? I think that we often develop an unhealthy idea of what power should look like and what power is supposed to be, right? I think power is important. I think power is great. For me, power is our ability to control our universe, right? The little world that we inhabit, whether it's just ourselves, whether it's some distance around us, power is our ability to shape and control that. And that is as it should be. I think we're supposed to have power, right? But what turns into toxic power is thinking that power always needs to be hierarchical. It always needs to be dominating, right? And it's this zero-sum mindset of if you have power, then I don't.
Got it.
Right.
And it leads to this warped idea that and I think this is why people react so badly. And then when we see people getting aggressive and getting dominating, so often it's just there's probably that fear of losing control over themselves because they don't have any other way of viewing it. You were talking about collaboration earlier. It's that's one of the big things we talk about is how can we encourage people to collaborate more? And when I do my talks, I talk about power over, power with, and power within.
Ooh, that's good.
Our society does an excellent job of teaching power over. Everybody learns about power over.
Yeah.
That's domination, that's hierarchy, that's climbing the corporate ladder. It's all these things, right?
Yeah.
It's
Power
the crown.
with, we do an okay job of talking about power with, because we have teamwork. We talk about teamwork and some collaboration and things like that. But it's still undervalued, right? It's often undervalued compared to that power over. And then we often don't learn power within. That's just that power that is like me, that no one else can take away, right? It comes from that sense of who I am, that self-identity, that sense of self-respect. It comes from responsibility, that like willingness to make change and seize, who I am. And that sense of morality, like I'm going to make the choices that I think, are true to my moral code.
Yeah.
And then those skills and mastery and knowledge that we can gain over a lifetime, right? Those things together, like no one else can take that away. And that's going to help me in seeing how I relate to the world and how I react to the world and how I shape my world.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
That is really
That's
beautiful.
wonderful.
Thank
Well,
you.
right there, someone has said this is amazing. I think it's Chrissy who
Chrissy
said this.
said that.
And I think we need to find out how people can get in touch with him.
Yeah, definitely. So I believe, let me put this in here.
Power versus what?
Power versus control.
Yeah.
Tanya was making the comment about power versus control. And so if you want to contact Scott and get more information about him, you can go to Scott A. Kaltenbaugh.
You have to
.com.
copy this right away.
And just click on the link. It'll open up another browser for you. Click on the link right now. It'll take you to his website. And then when we complete, you'll be able to have it right there. And if you want to know more about Scott, let me put this up here. This is who Scott is and some of his background and what he does in the world. Scott, it's been such a pleasure having you here with us today. Thank you for taking the time and joining us on this live stream. And
Thank you both.
yeah, we really appreciate you. I mean, you have opened up some really interesting topics here and powerful topics, things that we really need to be in communication about because our culture is really fucked up, man, when it comes to how do we become, this conscious, compassionate masculine versus toxic and wounded. And the same thing is true of the feminine. And because there is a toxic feminine, there is a wounded feminine, and then there's a conscious and compassionate feminine as well. And so we really want to bring it all together because this is about creating extraordinary experiences of life, extraordinary experience of pleasure, and extraordinary experiences of love. And we really feel like you're an extraordinary lover. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's been a joy to talk to you and an honor and a joy to get the questions from the viewers. So great.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. Now you know why we do what we do. One of the things we do what we do.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of fun.
It's fun.
We have a blast at this, even though there's tech difficulties, whatnot. We're sorting it all out.
Yeah, we are. And we're getting a new computer because Michael is convinced. Remember 2 weeks ago when I said he had toys? And then he had a clearing with me because he said, my things are not toys.
They're not.
And I said, okay, I stood corrected. Some of you remember that because you called it toys too.
Yeah.
So he's getting a new computer that he thinks will be better for this show, for broadcasting the show and doing a bunch of other technical things. And I'm good with that. And I'm not going to call it a toy.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. So I wanted you all to know that because some people were with us then.
Yeah. And I was a little bit gruff.
You were you got really grumpy after that.
I was a little grumpy.
But the other thing, I want to just acknowledge you one more time, Scott, for also creating the possibility of extraordinary lovers. Like you're creating young men who will have compassion and who will be able to understand things from different points of view. And that's already the way, that's already the start of becoming extraordinary lovers.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I just want to say, man, I feel so good about having you as my community. Like, it just feels so good to have you as my community, as someone, I really admire the work you do. I think it's unique. I think it's important. And I think it needs to be like out there, and the whole world needs to know about what you're doing. And so however we can be of service to you in making that happen, please let us know. We are going to be putting this up on YouTube, and I like to tell all our YouTube viewers, please, mash that subscribe button, hit the bell, and come back and view some of our other clips. But if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for that. And for those of you who are right here on Twitch, we love you. We appreciate you. Thank you, Jeffy Priest. We appreciate you coming out and sharing with us today. Carezza, we love you as always. Tanya and all the rest of you.
And Andy.
Andy. Yeah, thank you so much for being here with us.
I don't know what happened to Chris today.
We'll let her know that we missed her.
She said, I'll see you Friday, and then she wasn't on.
Yeah, we missed you. So the announcement.
Yeah.
The journey. Yeah?
Yeah.
So we just are completing with our Extraordinary Lovers experience. That's an experience that Laurie and I do to give people this new experience of what it feels like or what it's like to be an extraordinary lover and have extraordinary love in your life.
In a couple.
And this is for couples. And now we have an Extraordinary Lovers journey, which is coming up. It's 10 weeks. It actually deepens the experience and creates practices in your life so that you can continue on. Now, if you've never been to the Extraordinary Lovers experience, you can't do the journey. So you need one to be able to do the other. And let me just put in here real quick how to get to that. We do have another one coming up, April, March 24th, 25th, I think it is. But if you go to
it's April.
If you click the link, you'll see the next one that's coming up. And
it's
then
April 24, 25.
Right. An Extraordinary Lovers Journey. If you go to extraordinarylovers.com and you scroll down just a little bit, you'll see the journey there. Click on that link and you can find out more about what that journey is.
Andy, we want you and your wife in that. I'm just telling you that right now.
Definitely.
We don't want her to kill you for any reason or get upset with you for any reason. We want to see you there if possible.
We believe that couples are an endangered species. We're here to change that. So do join us. Well, I think we're about to wrap up. It looks like it's time.
It's time.
So once again, thank you. Please make sure
Scott.
You get to Scott's website, and I'm going to put that on here once again.
Okay, good.
Here we go. And please click on the link right now and then check out more information if you want to. Please contact Scott through his website. He's available. I'm sure you're doing coaching and all the other things. You can find out about his programs. Yes, he is. It's actually in your bio information. But he's a coach, and he's soon to be a certified sex and happiness coach.
That's right.
Yeah.
Excited.
That's
so
right.
Excited for you, brother.
All right, and everybody, we will see you next week on Extraordinary Lovers. We love you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.